Thomas Mann will go down in public memory as someone who stood up to the establishment and whose eloquence was his downfall.
In a section highly critical of the airline management, he talks of a predetermined plan of deception at the inquiry. I am forced reluctantly to say, Mr. Justice Mann says, that I had to listen to an orchestrated litany of lies.
The phrase orchestrated litany of lies has become part of the New Zealand lexicon. Justice Mann became the sole Royal Commissioner into the Erebus disaster in the middle of 1980. His widow Margarita remembers learning about the appointment, which changed all of their lives.
He said, I have said yes. And then there was a moment's silence, and he said, but I'll tell you now, it could become a political football.
And his prediction turned out to be true. His commission, or inquiry report, which superseded the findings of the Chief Inspector of Air Accidents Ron Chippendale, moved the public's perception of blame for the crash from the pilot to Air New Zealand and civil aviation. His friend, retired Court of Appeal and Supreme Court Judge Sir Ted Thomas.
He was an extremely good writer, extremely good. But this might be one of those occasions when the temptation to write overcome prudence. If he had not used the phrase orchestrated litany of lies, none of the ensuing litigation would have taken place. There was then no ground on which Air New Zealand could have challenged the report.
In 1981, Air New Zealand challenged his orchestrated litany of lies findings. The Court of Appeal, which never challenged his findings about the cause of the crash, found against him on natural justice. Justice Peter Mann offered his resignation from the High Court bench early in 1982. Radio New Zealand's Sharon Crosby caught up with them after that.
Do you ever regret the phrase that will go into history, the orchestrated litany of lies?
No, I don't really. It seemed to me that I was under duty to make it as clear as possible that I'd been told a false tale.
Peter Mann appealed to the Privy Council, then New Zealand's highest appeal court, and it too found against him. Both courts concluded he was entitled to say witnesses lied, but saying they committed organised perjury and orchestrated litany of lies was a step too far. Margarita Mann.
It affected the whole family, and it needn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened. Sad.
Peter Mann died in 1986 at the age of 62. Many of his supporters thought that he was, perhaps, the last victim of Erebus. Gary Harrison, who assisted Mann during the Royal Commission of Inquiry and who accompanied Mann to Antarctica on the first anniversary of the crash, remembers a man who was perhaps one of the best wordsmiths New Zealand ever produced.
And in fact, I think the final paragraph of his report is one of the finest pieces of prose that's ever been written. I've got it. Shall I read it to you? And he said, much has been written and said about the weather hazards of Antarctica and how they may combine to create a spectacular but hostile terrain. But for my purposes, the most definitive illustration of these hidden perils was the wreckage which lay on the mountainside below, showing how the forces of nature, if given the chance, can sometimes defeat the flawless technology of man. For the ultimate key to the tragedy lay here in the white silence of Lewis Bay, the place to which the airliner had been unerringly guided by its microelectronic navigation system, only to be destroyed in clear air and without warning by a malevolent trick of the polar light.
I'm Garry McAlpine, and this is Erebus Flight 901, Litany of Lies.